They offered her to the northern beast as a sacrifice. The chains bit into Yara's wrists as the village elders dragged her toward the hollow, that black pit in the mountainside where generations of women had been left for the creature that ruled the northern reach. She was 23 years old, unmarried, and marked with silver scars that everyone whispered were proof of something unnatural. "The beast will cleanse her corruption," the head elder declared. Her own father had volunteered her, had signed the papers with steady hands while her mother's portrait watched from the wall. Her mother, who'd died in exile, blamed for sins she never committed. So Yara didn't cry, didn't beg. She let them chain her to the ancient stone altar and walked into the darkness alone. Let it come, she thought. Let it end. But the beast never came. Instead, as dawn broke over the mountains, hoofbeats thundered through the silence. A rider appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a cloak black as midnight. When he dismounted and stepped into the light, Yara's breath caught. He was beautiful. Terrifyingly, impossibly beautiful, with eyes like molten bronze and an aura of power that pressed against her skin. "I am Calder Solvane," he said, his voice rolling through the hollow like distant thunder. "Alpha King of the Northern Reach." "The beast," Yara started. "There is no beast. Not anymore." He studied her chains, her marks, her defiant stare. "Only me." "Then why did you come?" "To claim what was offered." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the unnatural heat radiating from his skin. "They gave you to the North. The North accepts." Yara met his gaze without flinching. "And if I refuse?" Something flickered in those bronze eyes. Surprise, respect, and something darker that made her pulse race. "Then this," he said softly, "will be far more interesting than I expected." Neither of them understood how true those words would prove to be. The morning they came for Yara, the sky wept gray rain. She'd known it was coming. The whispers had followed her for weeks, through the market square, past the well where women gathered, into the stone walls of her father's house where she was no longer welcome at the family table. The blood tithe, they called it. Every 7 years, the northern beast demanded tribute. A woman, young and unmarried, offered to the hollow to appease the creature that had terrorized their ancestors for generations. This year, the village had chosen her. "It's an honor," Elder Harwick had declared at the town gathering, his rheumy eyes sliding past her as though she were already dead. "The marked girl will cleanse our village of her taint and earn the beast's mercy for another cycle." The marked girl. That's all she'd ever been. Yara's silver scars had appeared on her 13th birthday, lightning-shaped patterns that spread across her shoulder blades, climbed her neck, and branched down her arms like frozen rivers. Her father, Aldrich Valdrin, had taken one look at them and locked her in the cellar for 3 days. "Your mother's corruption," he'd spat through the door. "I always knew she'd curse this family." Her mother had been exiled that same month, sent away in the dead of night, accused of witchcraft, of passing something unnatural to her daughter. Yara had never seen her again, 10 years later, and the marks still burned with cold fire when she was afraid. They burned now as the guards dragged her up the mountain path. The hollow was exactly what its name suggested. A massive pit carved into the mountainside, its walls smooth as glass, its depths swallowed by shadow. Stone steps spiraled downward into darkness. At the bottom, according to legend, the beast waited. No woman who descended those steps had ever returned. "Move!" the guard grunted, shoving her forward. Yara stumbled, her chains clanking against the ancient stone altar at the hollow's entrance. They bound her there, wrapping iron links around her wrists and ankles until she couldn't move. "The beast will come at dawn," Elder Harwick intoned. "May your sacrifice bring our village peace." Then they left. Yara hung in the chains, watching the torches disappear down the mountain path. Rain soaked through her thin dress. The cold crept into her bones. And somewhere in the darkness below, she imagined she heard breathing. "So this is how I die," she thought. She'd imagined death many times over the years. In her father's cellar, listening to his footsteps overhead. During the beatings, her sister Mira pretended not to hear. In the quiet moments when the loneliness grew so heavy she forgot how to breathe. But she'd never imagined dying like this, chained to a rock, waiting to be devoured by a monster. The night stretched on. The rain eventually stopped. Stars emerged, cold and distant, offering no comfort. And then, just as the horizon began to lighten, she heard it. Hoofbeats. Not from the hollow below, but from the mountain path above. Yara's head snapped up. A figure emerged from the pre-dawn mist, a rider on a horse black as shadow, moving with impossible speed. He reached the altar in seconds, dismounting before his horse had fully stopped. And when Yara saw his face, her breath abandoned her entirely. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with hair the color of dark copper and eyes that glowed like molten bronze in the fading starlight. Power radiated from him in waves, pressing against her skin, making the silver marks on her body tingle with recognition. Not human, some instinct whispered. Not entirely. You're the sacrifice, he said. Not a question. And you're not the beast. Yara was surprised her voice worked at all. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, perhaps, or something darker. No, I'm something else entirely. He moved toward her, and Yara tensed against her chains. But instead of touching her, he examined the locks, then gripped the iron with his bare hands. Heat flared. The metal glowed red, then white, then crumbled to ash. Yara collapsed forward, and he caught her before she hit the ground. His hands were impossibly warm against her rain-chilled skin, like holding fire itself. I am Calder Sylvain, he said, Alpha King of the Northern Reach, and you belong to me now. I don't belong to anyone, Yara rasped. That bronze gaze held hers. For a long moment neither of them moved. Then he smiled. A slow, dangerous curve of lips that did something strange to her pulse. We'll see about that. The journey to Ironholt took 3 days. Yara spent most of it in a carriage that was far too warm, wrapped in furs that smelled of pine and wood smoke, trying to make sense of what had happened. The Alpha King rode alongside on his black horse, occasionally visible through the carriage window, never looking back at her. She should have been terrified. Everything she'd heard about Calder Sylvain painted him as a monster, the northern beast in human form, a king who ruled through fear and violence, who demanded blood tribute from villages that still remembered the terror of his ancestors. But the man who'd freed her from those chains hadn't seemed monstrous. He'd seemed tired, ancient in a way that had nothing to do with age. On the 3rd evening, they reached Ironholt. The fortress rose from the mountains like an extension of the stone itself. Black walls stretching toward a sky heavy with storm clouds, towers crowned with iron spikes, windows flickering with warm light that seemed almost incongruous against such harsh architecture. Guards bowed as they passed through the gates. Servants appeared to take the horses, and Calder finally turned to look at her. You'll want answers, he said. I want many things. Yara climbed down from the carriage without assistance. Answers are merely the beginning. That flicker of amusement again, there and gone like lightning. Come with me. He led her through corridors that seemed carved from shadow and flame, past tapestries depicting ancient battles, past servants who stared at her silver marks with undisguised curiosity. Finally, they reached a study lined with books, a fire roaring in a hearth large enough to stand in. The heat was stifling. Yara noticed Calder moved closer to it, not away. The blood tithe, he began without preamble, was established by my great-great-grandfather after a series of attacks on northern villages. He believed that offering sacrifices would appease the creature responsible. And did it? No, because the creature was never appeased by blood. Calder's jaw tightened. The creature was bound, contained. Eventually, it died. The attacks stopped, But the villages continued the offerings anyway, convinced that any disruption would bring the terror back. Yara processed this. So there is no beast. There is no beast. Only the memory of one, and the fear that feeds on memory. Then why do you come? Every 7 years you appear at the hollow and take the sacrificed women. If not to devour them, then what? Calder turned to face her fully. In the firelight, the bronze of his eyes seemed almost molten, dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. I take them to save them, he said quietly. Every woman left in that hollow would die. Of cold, of starvation, of the wolves that roam these mountains. I give them a choice instead. Stay in Ironholt, build new lives, or receive passage to wherever they wish to go. Yara stared at him. You've been rescuing them. For 23 years. The same number as her age. He'd been doing this her entire life. Why maintain the fear then? Why let the villages believe you're a monster? Something shifted in his expression. Not quite pain, but close. Because the fear keeps them in line, prevents wars, maintains order. If they knew the beast was dead, they'd turn on each other within a generation. He paused. Sometimes, being thought a monster is more useful than being known as a man. Yara should have felt relieved. She was safe. She'd been saved, not condemned. But something in his voice, in the careful distance he maintained, told her this wasn't the whole truth. And me? She asked. What choice do you offer me? Calder was quiet for a long moment. His gaze moved over her, not with hunger, but with assessment, calculation, like a man examining a map and finding unexpected territory. You're different from the others, he said finally. Those marks on your skin, that power I can sense coiled inside you. You're not just a sacrifice. You're something far more valuable. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? He stepped closer, and the heat radiating from him pressed against her cool skin. I'm offering you a different bargain, Yara of Thornwick. Not freedom. Something else. What? Marriage. The word hung between them like a blade. I need an heir, Calder continued, his voice clinical despite the intimacy of the offer. A queen to sit beside me, to bear my children, to help me rule the Northern Reach. In exchange, you'll have protection, power, and wealth beyond imagining. And love? The question escaped before Yara could stop it. His expression hardened. No. Never love. That's the one thing I cannot offer. Yara should have refused. Should have demanded that freedom he'd promised others. Instead, she thought of her father's cold eyes, her sister's silence, the cellar where she'd spent so many nights alone. Cold over cruelty, she whispered. What? Nothing. She lifted her chin. I accept your terms, Alpha King, but know this. I won't be owned. I won't be controlled. Whatever this marriage becomes, I enter it as your equal or not at all. Something dangerous flared in those bronze eyes, interest, challenge, heat. Agreed, he said. Welcome to Ironholt, my queen. The wedding took place 3 days later. Yara had expected something small. A private ceremony, perhaps, witnessed only by the necessary officials. Instead, she found herself standing in the great hall of Ironholt, surrounded by northern nobility who stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. And there, at the edge of the crowd, stood her father. Yara's blood turned to ice. Aldrich Valdrin looked older than she remembered, his hair grayed at the temples, deep lines carved around his mouth. Beside him stood her sister Mira, beautiful in a gown of winter blue, her eyes carefully avoiding Yara's gaze. They're here as witnesses, Calder murmured, appearing at her side. Tradition demands family presence at royal weddings. He's not my family. Yara's voice came out harder than she intended. He stopped being my family the day he offered me to the Hollow. Nevertheless, he'll witness this union. Calder's hand found the small of her back, warm, steady. grounding. And he'll watch you become something far greater than he ever allowed you to be. The ceremony began. Yara barely heard the words. She was too aware of her father's gaze burning into her back, of the whispers rippling through the crowd, of the heat of the man standing beside her. Do you, Calder Sylvain, Alpha King of the Northern Reach, take this woman as your wife, your queen, your mate? I do. His voice carried through the hall without effort. And do you, Yara of Thornwick, accept this man as your husband, your king, your mate? Yara turned to look at Calder. In the torchlight, his copper hair gleamed like burnished metal, and those strange bronze eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. I do, she said clearly. Then by the laws of the Northern Reach, I pronounce you bound. You may claim your bride. The hall went silent, waiting. Calder stepped closer. His hand rose to cup her face, and paused, hovering inches from the silver marks visible above her collar. May I? He asked, quiet enough that only she could hear. The request, the choice he was offering even now, loosened something tight in her chest. Yes. His palm settled against her cheek, burning warm. He leaned down, and for one heart-stopping moment, Yara thought he would kiss her mouth. Instead, his lips pressed against her forehead, gentle as a blessing. Mine, he murmured against her skin. My queen, my storm. The crowd erupted in applause, but Yara barely heard it. She was too focused on the strange flutter in her chest, the warmth spreading through her veins, the way his touch felt like coming home. After the ceremony, there was feasting. Yara sat beside Calder at the high table, accepting congratulations from nobles whose names she immediately forgot, eating food she couldn't taste, counting the minutes until she could escape. But escape came in an unexpected form. Daughter. Yara's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her father had approached the high table, Mira trailing behind him like a shadow. You will address her as Your Majesty, Calder said coldly. Aldrich's jaw tightened. Of course. Your Majesty. The words dripped with barely concealed venom. I simply wish to congratulate you on your unexpected elevation. Your congratulations are noted. Yara's voice could have frozen fire. You may go. Before I do. Her father leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You should know that I tried to warn them. The king, his advisors. I told them what you are, what those marks mean, the corruption your mother passed to you. My mother was innocent. Your mother was a witch. Aldrich's eyes glittered with malice. And so are you. When the king discovers the truth, when he sees what you really are, this pretty fairy tale will end in flames. Enjoy it while it lasts. He withdrew before she could respond, disappearing into the crowd with Mira in tow. Yara sat frozen, her appetite completely gone. What did he say? She flinched. She hadn't realized Calder was watching. Nothing of consequence. You're lying. It wasn't an accusation, merely an observation. Your scent changed. Fear and anger mixed. Whatever he said, it wasn't nothing. Yara turned to look at him, this strange king who noticed too much, who ran too hot, who had given her a choice when no one else ever had. He reminded me, she said carefully, that I'm not what I appear to be, that when you discover the truth, you'll regret this bargain. Calder studied her for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. I already know you're hiding something, he said quietly. Those marks, the power I can feel coiled inside you. Whatever secret you're keeping, whatever truth you think will destroy this marriage. His grip tightened. I don't care. You should. Perhaps. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a burning kiss to her knuckles. But I find myself remarkably unconcerned. When you're ready to tell me, I'll listen. Until then, your secrets are your own. A fissure split through her chest. Not pain, but the fracturing of walls she'd built long ago. No one had ever offered her patience before. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. The night is young, and there are still several hours of celebration to endure. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, her father's poisonous words, Yara found herself smiling back. Perhaps this bargain wouldn't destroy her after all. The chambers prepared for her were nothing like Yara had expected. She'd imagined stone walls bare and cold, a room befitting a beast's reluctant bride. Instead, she found warmth. Thick furs carpeted the floor. A fire blazed in a hearth large enough to stand in. Tapestries depicting northern storms covered the walls, silver lightning stitched against backgrounds of deep violet and black. The blind handmaidens had bathed her in water scented with pine and winter roses, brushed her hair until it fell like dark silk down her back, dressed her in a sleeping gown so thin it felt like wearing moonlight. They'd extinguished every candle before leaving, plunging the room into darkness broken only by the fire's glow. Now Yara sat on the edge of the bed, her pulse racing against her ribs. This was the binding night, the consummation that would seal her as his mate, his queen, his possession. She'd agreed to his terms, heirs in exchange for protection. It had seemed simple when it was merely words on parchment. It felt anything but simple now. 3 knocks at the door. Heavy. Deliberate. "Enter," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Calder stepped inside and paused. The firelight caught him in fragments. The strong column of his throat where his shirt hung unlaced. The breadth of shoulders that seemed to fill the doorway. Eyes that reflected flame like molten bronze. He closed the door behind him, and Yara realized they were truly alone for the first time. "You're trembling," he observed. "I'm cold," she lied. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. "You're sitting beside a fire that could forge steel." Heat flooded her cheeks. He was right, of course. The room was stifling. But admitting fear felt worse than an obvious lie. Calder approached slowly, giving her time to flee if she wished. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. That impossible, unnatural heat that shouldn't exist in any living body. "I have no intention of hurting you," he said quietly. "Despite what your village believes, I am not a monster who devours maidens in the dark." "I know," Yara whispered. And strangely, she did. His cruelty would have shown itself by now, in the carriage, at the ceremony, in any of the countless moments when he could have exercised his power over her. Instead, he'd been careful, almost gentle. "I will wear this," Calder said. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a strip of black silk. Yara stared at it, confused. "What?" "A blindfold." His voice held no mockery. "Your marks, the silver on your skin. I've seen the way you hide them, the way you flinch when anyone looks too closely. If you would prefer I not see them, not even accidentally." The thoughtfulness of it made her throat tighten. "You would do that?" she asked. "Bind your own eyes on our wedding night?" "I would do many things to ensure your comfort." He said it simply, as though it cost him nothing. "Your secrets are yours to keep until you choose otherwise." Yara rose on unsteady legs. "Turn around." He obeyed without hesitation. She had to step close to tie the blindfold, had to rise on her toes to reach. This near, she could see things the distance had hidden. A thin scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the slight crook in his nose from an old break. The surprisingly long lashes resting against his cheeks as his eyes closed. She secured the silk, her fingers lingering against the warmth of his skin. "It's done," she breathed. "Then we are equals now." His voice was rough velvet in the darkness, both of us blind to what the other hides. The fire crackled, shadows danced across the walls, and Yara realized that somewhere between the blindfold and this moment, her trembling had stopped. His hands rose slowly, finding her shoulders through careful exploration rather than assumption. His palms were broad, calloused, burning warm against her bare skin where the sleeping gown had slipped. "Your skin is cool," he murmured, "like rain. Yours is like fire. Does it bother you?" "No." The word escaped before she could consider it. "It feels good?" She felt him react, a subtle tension in his fingers, a shift in his breathing. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped lower. "May I?" She didn't ask what he was requesting permission for. She simply said, "Yes." His hands moved with aching slowness, tracing the curve of her shoulders, the line of her collarbones. When his fingertips brushed the edge of her sleeping gown's neckline, he paused again. Another question in the stillness. "Yes," Yara repeated, softer this time. The silk whispered down her body. For a long moment, he simply held still, his hands hovering at her waist, as though she were something fragile and holy. "I'm going to kiss you now," he said. His mouth found hers with unerring accuracy despite his blindness, and the sensation shattered every thought in her head. His lips were warm, so warm, moving against hers with patience that felt like reverence. She tasted smoke and winter wine and something darker beneath. Desire held on a tight leash. Yara's hands found his chest, mapping the terrain of hard muscle beneath linen. When she reached his heart, she gasped. It was pounding, frantic, fast as a war drum despite his outward control. "You're not as calm as you pretend," she whispered against his mouth. "I have never been less calm in my life." His voice was raw. "You have no idea what you do to me." He lifted her then, carried her to the bed as though she weighed nothing. When he laid her down, it was with such gentleness that moisture pricked her eyes. This was not what she'd expected, not what anyone had warned her about. This was care wrapped in fire. They came together slowly, his patience endless, his attention focused entirely on her responses. He learned what made her gasp, what made her arch into him, what made soft sounds escape her throat. And when the pleasure finally crested, washing through her like summer lightning, he held her through every tremor. Afterward, they lay tangled together, his arm wrapped around her waist, her back pressed against the furnace of his chest. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair, "for trusting me with this." A lump formed in her throat. No one had ever thanked her for anything. She felt him shift as if to leave, and panic spiked through her. "Stay," she said before she could stop herself. "Please, just stay." A long pause. She could hear his heartbeat against her spine, still fast, still racing. "As you wish," he said finally. His arm tightened around her, pulling her closer, and within moments, the steady rhythm of his breathing told her he'd fallen asleep. Yara lay awake in the darkness, acutely aware of the burning man wrapped around her, of the blindfold still covering his eyes, of the silver marks hidden beneath skin he'd chosen not to see. He could have demanded everything, she thought. Instead, he gave me a choice. She didn't know what to do with this strange, fierce king who treated her like something precious. But she was beginning to suspect she wanted to find out. He returned every night. Yara hadn't expected it. The contract required only that they produce heirs, a clinical arrangement that could have been fulfilled with minimal contact. Instead, Calder appeared at her chambers each evening as the sun dipped below the mountain peaks, and didn't leave until dawn light crept through the windows. Some nights they spoke for hours. He asked about her childhood, her favorite books, her opinions on everything from trade routes to the best way to prepare venison stew. He listened when she spoke, actually listened, with an intensity that made her feel like the only person in the world. Other nights, they didn't speak at all. Those were the nights that frightened her most, because she found herself craving them. One evening, Yara descended to the fortress library seeking answers. Not about him, exactly. About herself. about what was happening inside her chest every time he walked through her door. "You've captured the king's attention," a voice observed. Yara spun to find an elegant woman seated by the fire, silver-streaked hair piled elaborately atop her head. She recognized her from court, Lady Sorvina, the widowed countess who served as unofficial advisor to half the noble houses in the Northern Reach. "We have an arrangement," Yara said carefully. "Nothing more." "Is that so?" Sorvina's eyes glittered with amusement. "Strange, then, that he visits your chambers nightly when the arrangement requires only occasional contribution." Heat flooded Yara's face. "How do you know?" "My dear, the servants talk, the guards talk, even the stones of this fortress talk if you know how to listen." She gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit. You have questions written all over your face." Against her better judgment, Yara sat. "The king has never taken a consort seriously," Sorvina continued. "Mistresses, yes. Brief ones who never lasted past a single night. But you," her gaze sharpened. "He looks at you like you're the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life." Yara's heart stuttered. "You're wrong. Perhaps. But if I'm right, you'll need allies in this court. There are those who resent a southern sacrifice rising to power. Those who wanted their own daughters warming the king's bed." She leaned forward. "And those who know what the silver marks on your skin truly mean." Ice flooded Yara's veins. "I don't know what your stormcaller." The word was barely a whisper. "I saw one once, when I was a girl. She could call lightning from a clear sky, make the winds bow to her will. The marks on her skin looked exactly like yours." Yara couldn't breathe. "Your secret is safe with me," Sorvina said gently. "But it won't stay hidden forever. Secrets in Ironholt have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moments." She rose, straightening her skirts. "Learn to control what you are before someone else tries to control it for you." Then she was gone, leaving Yara alone with her racing thoughts. That night, when Calder came to her chambers, she found herself studying him differently. The heat radiating from his skin seemed stronger than before. When he touched her, his palms were almost too warm, like holding sun-baked stones. And twice during their lovemaking, she caught him grimacing, quickly masked, but unmistakable. Afterward, as they lay together in the darkness, Yara finally asked, "Are you ill?" Calder's arm tightened around her. "What makes you ask?" "You burn hotter every day. I've seen you wince when you think I'm not looking." She turned in his embrace, her hand finding his chest. His heart thundered beneath her palm. "Your heart races even at rest. Something's wrong." Silence stretched between them. "It's a family condition," he said finally. "Nothing to concern yourself with." Calder. "Leave it, Yara." His voice held an edge she'd never heard before. Not anger, but something closer to fear. "Some things are better left undiscussed." She wanted to push, to demand answers. But the tension in his body warned her against it. Instead, she changed tactics. "Tell me about the beast," she said. "The one the Northern Reach fears. The one they say devours sacrifices." Another long pause. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "There is no beast. Not anymore." "But there was once." His exhale stirred her hair. "Once. Yes. Long ago. My ancestor, the first Sylvain king, made a bargain with something ancient and terrible. Power in exchange for something else. The bargain went wrong. Or perhaps it went exactly as the creature intended." His hand found hers in the darkness. "Every king since has carried the consequences." "What consequences?" He brought her knuckles to his lips, pressing a burning kiss against her skin. "The sun lives inside us," he murmured, "beautiful and destructive. We burn brighter than other men, fight harder, lead more fiercely. But fire that burns too bright burns out," Yara finished, understanding dawning with horror. "Eventually, yes." "Is that why you're so hot? Why your heart—" "Yara." He said her name like a prayer and a warning combined. I've told you more than I should. More than I've told anyone. Please, let it rest. She wanted to argue, to demand he tell her everything. But there was something broken in his voice that silenced her protests. So she simply held him tighter, as though she could anchor him to this world through touch alone. As the weeks became months, Calder began arriving earlier each evening, sometimes before sunset, sharing dinner in her chambers before pulling her to bed. He talked more freely now, about the pressures of ruling, the diplomatic challenges with the southern kingdoms, the old laws he wished he could change. The blood tithe, Yara said one night. The sacrifices. You disagree with them. I despise them. The words came out harsh. Innocent women offered up to appease superstition and fear. I ended the practice the moment I took the throne, but the villages still believe. They still prepare their daughters for offering, convinced the beast will come if they don't. So you go anyway. You take the women they leave. To save them from worse fates. His jaw tightened. If I refused them, they'd be cast out, exiled for failing their sacred duty. Or they'd die in the hollow, waiting for a beast that no longer comes. Yara studied his face in the firelight. This man who the South called monster, who had built his fearsome reputation deliberately, she now understood, to protect women from being offered in the first place. You're not what anyone thinks you are, she whispered. Neither are you. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. I feel it, Yara. Something building between us. The mate bond forming. Don't tell me you don't feel it too. She couldn't lie. The pull toward him had grown so strong it felt like gravity. I feel it, she admitted. Good. He kissed her forehead with devastating tenderness. Because I don't intend to let you go. Those words should have frightened her. Instead, they made her feel like she'd finally found the place she belonged. She didn't know yet that belonging to him might destroy them both. Yara woke 3 months later to a certainty that changed everything. She'd known something was different for weeks. The queasiness in the mornings, the exhaustion that pulled at her despite sleeping well. The way certain scents made her head spin. But she'd refused to name it, afraid that acknowledging the truth would shatter this fragile paradise she'd built. The healer confirmed it that afternoon. You're with child, Your Majesty, nearly 2 months along. Yara placed her hand on her still flat stomach, feeling nothing and everything at once. She was carrying Calder's child, the heir he'd married her to produce. The purpose of our arrangement, she thought numbly, fulfilled. She waited until that evening to tell him. Calder arrived at his usual hour, already loosening his collar as he stepped through the door, and stopped when he saw her sitting rigid by the fire. Something's wrong. He crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling before her chair. Yara, what happened? Are you hurt? I'm pregnant. The word hung between them. Calder's expression froze. She watched emotion flicker behind his eyes. Surprise? Calculation? Something she couldn't name. Before his face went carefully blank. You're certain? The healer confirmed it. Slowly, reverently, his hand reached toward her stomach. He paused inches away, a question in his eyes, and Yara nodded. His palm pressed flat against her abdomen, burning warm through the fabric of her gown. A child, he breathed. Our child. Your heir, Yara corrected, her voice hollow. As agreed. Calder's eyes snapped to her face. What? The tears she'd been holding back all day finally spilled over. You have what you needed, an heir. The contract is fulfilled. You don't need to keep coming here anymore. I understand. Yara? I won't make demands. I know this was always just an arrangement. I'll raise the child properly, prepare him for succession, whatever you require. You can return to your life without obligation to stop. He gripped her hands, his voice cracking. Listen to me. Is that what you think? That I've been coming here every night for 3 months because of a contract? She couldn't look at him. It's what you said. Heirs in exchange for protection. Nothing more. I was a fool. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. I was a terrified fool who thought I could protect myself by keeping distance. But it didn't work, Yara. From the moment I saw you in that hollow, something in me recognized something in you. Calder. I need you. The confession tore out of him. Not because of any contract or kingdom or succession. I need you because without you, every day is cold. Because your voice is the first thing I want to hear in the morning and the last thing I need at night. Because you make me feel like maybe, despite everything, I could be more than the beast they made me. Something gave way inside her. Hope she hadn't dared feel finally breaking free. You were never a beast, she whispered. I love you. He said it like a man stepping off a cliff. I love you, and I should have told you weeks ago, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it if you'll let me. Joy burst through her like summer sunlight after a storm. I love you too, she whispered. I've loved you for so long I can't remember what it felt like before. Calder's face transformed with relief, with wonder, with something that looked like salvation. He pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest, and she felt moisture that wasn't hers dampening her hair. You've made me so happy, he murmured. You and this child, our family. I never thought I could have this. Yara pulled back to look at him, to memorize this moment of perfect joy, and watched the light drain from his eyes. Calder? His hand flew to his chest. A sound escaped him. Not quite a scream, but close. Pained. Primal. Calder! Yara grabbed his shoulders as he swayed. His skin was no longer warm, it was blazing, hot enough to sting her palms. What's happening? No. He staggered backward, knocking over a chair. No, not now, not yet. Tell me what to do. He collapsed. Yara caught him before he hit the floor, cradling his head in her lap. His body convulsed, spine arching, muscles locking. Beneath his skin, she could see something moving. Light, she realized with horror. Light pulsing through his veins like molten gold, spreading from his heart outward. The curse, he gasped. Yara, listen to me. I'll get the healer. I'll get help. There's no help. His hand found hers, gripping with desperate strength. The first king's bargain. Power for control. If any Solvane ever falls in love, truly in love. Understanding crashed through her. The fire inside you, she breathed. It intensifies. It consumes. His laugh was bitter, broken. My ancestors believed love made kings weak, so they made a bargain that would ensure we never risked it. Feel love, and the fire that makes us powerful becomes an inferno that destroys us from within. So when you said you loved me, I triggered my own death. He smiled despite the agony twisting his features. And I would do it again, knowing you loved me back, even for a moment. No. Yara pressed her hands against his chest, feeling the terrible heat searing her palms. There has to be a way to stop it, to reverse it. There isn't. My father tried when he fell for my mother. Every healer, every scholar, every mage in the kingdom. Nothing worked. His hand trembled as he touched her face. I'm sorry, Yara. I should have stayed cold. Should have kept my distance. But you were so... He coughed, and golden light flickered behind his teeth. Don't you dare apologize for loving me? Wetness blurred her vision. Don't you dare? Raise our child well. His voice was fading. Tell them. Tell them their father loved their mother more than his own life. You'll tell them yourself. You're not dying. I won't let you die. But even as she screamed for the guards, even as footsteps thundered in the corridors and voices raised in alarm, she could feel him slipping away. The curse of the Northern Kings had activated, and the man who had saved her from sacrifice was burning alive in her arms. Someone help! Yara's scream tore through the corridors. The king is dying. Guards burst through the door within seconds. Behind them came healers, advisors, servants, a flood of horrified faces staring at their king convulsing on the floor, golden light pulsing beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. "Don't touch him!" the head healer shouted as a guard reached for Calder's arm. "The heat. It'll burn straight through flesh." Yara hadn't released him. Her palms were blistered, the skin raw and weeping, but she refused to let go. "There must be something you can do," she demanded. "Potions, spells, anything." The healer's face was gray. "Your Majesty, this is the Solvane curse. It's been studied for generations. There is no cure. There never has been." "Then study harder." "Yara." Calder's voice was barely audible. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, the irises now ringed with flickering gold. "Stop. Listen." She leaned closer, ignoring the heat searing her skin. "I'm here. I'm not leaving. The curse takes weeks, sometimes months." Each word cost him visible effort. "My father lasted 40 days after he told my mother he loved her. There's time." "Time for what?" "To prepare. The kingdom. Succession. Our child." "I don't want time to prepare." Yara's voice cracked. "I want you to live." His hand trembled as it found her face. Even through her tears, she could see the light spreading through his veins, creeping up his neck toward his jaw. "I chose this," he whispered. "Loving you. I knew what it would cost. And I chose it anyway." "Well, I don't accept that choice." She pressed her forehead to his. "You don't get to die on me," Calder Sylvain. "Not when I finally found somewhere I belong." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Stubborn woman. You married me. Live with the consequences." The healers managed to move him to the bed, wrapping their hands in thick cloth to protect against the burning heat. Yara refused to leave his side, refused to sleep, refused to eat despite everyone's urging. On the third day, as she sat vigil beside him, Calder spoke again. "Your marks." Yara stiffened. His eyes were clearer today, though the golden light had spread to cover half his torso. "What about them?" "I've been thinking." His voice was hoarse but steady. "Silver marks, patterns that look like lightning frozen mid-strike. And that night in your chambers, when I was inside you, I felt something. Power. Like being struck by a storm." Her heart stopped. "Calder. You're not just a sacrifice, are you?" His gaze held hers. "You're something else. Something you've been hiding." She could lie. She could deflect. But he was dying because he'd loved her, and she couldn't give him anything less than truth. "I'm a stormcaller," she said quietly. Silence. The fire crackled in the hearth. "My father claimed my mother was one too. He said the gift passes through bloodlines, always through the women." I believed him. She steadied herself. "When I was 13, my abilities manifested. My father..." Her voice caught. "My father said it was an abomination. Said I'd inherited my mother's shame. He had a binding mage seal my powers before anyone else could discover what I was." Calder's expression hadn't changed. She couldn't read him. "Show me," he said. "What?" "Show me your marks. All of them. Let me see what you've been hiding." Yara's hands shook as she reached for the collar of her gown. Slowly, she loosened the ties, letting the fabric fall away from her shoulders. The marks covered her like a second skin. Silver-white lightning patterns spreading from her spine, branching across her shoulder blades, climbing her neck, descending down her arms. In the firelight, they seemed to shimmer with their own inner glow. She waited for the disgust, the horror, the same revulsion she'd seen in her father's eyes all those years ago. "Beautiful," Calder breathed. Yara blinked. "What?" "You're beautiful." He reached for her, his burning fingers tracing one of the lightning branches across her collarbone. Like a storm given human form. How could anyone look at this and see shame? "You're dying because you love me." Tears spilled down her cheeks. And now you know I'm cursed too. Marked. Bound. Everything about me is wrong. Everything about you is extraordinary. His thumb caught a tear, evaporating it instantly against his heated skin. You're a stormcaller. You control lightning itself. And you're carrying my child. Don't you understand? I thought if you saw what I really am, you might stop loving me. The curse might break. Never. The word was fierce despite his weakness. I could never stop loving you. Not if you were marked, bound, or anything else. You're mine, Yara. Storm and all. Something gave way inside her. Walls she hadn't known she'd built, finally crumbling. There has to be a way, she insisted. Fire and storm, heat and cold, they're opposites. If I could reach my power. Your magic is bound. Then I'll find a way to unbind it. She gripped his hand, ignoring the searing pain. You saved me from the hollow. You gave me a home, a purpose, a reason to live. I won't let you burn for loving me. I won't. Calder's eyes fluttered. The golden light was spreading faster now, climbing his neck, approaching his jaw. So stubborn, he murmured. My storm. Then his eyes closed and he didn't open them again. 4 weeks had passed since Calder collapsed. The golden light had spread to cover most of his body now, pulsing beneath his skin like lava flowing through cracks in stone. His temperature had become so extreme that they'd moved him to the ice cellars beneath the fortress, packing him in frozen blocks that melted within hours. He hadn't woken once. Yara barely slept. She divided her hours between sitting vigil at his side and tearing through every book in the fortress library, searching for any mention of the Solvane curse, any hint of a cure. On the 30th day, she found something. Not a cure, but a reference. The fire that burns within may only be quenched by its natural opposite. As flame fears water, the Solvane blaze fears the storm. Yet what power could command such forces? Storm. Yara stood abruptly, the book falling from her lap. Her power, her sealed, bound, inaccessible power. If she could reach it, if she could unleash the storm living dormant inside her. She burst into the council chamber without announcement. I need a mage, she declared. The most powerful unbinding mage in the Northern Reach. Find them, now. The counselors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Your Majesty, the eldest began carefully. Unbinding mages are forbidden. Their practice was outlawed a century ago after... I don't care what was outlawed. Yara's voice could have frozen the sun. My husband is dying. I am carrying his heir. And I will tear this kingdom apart stone by stone if that's what it takes to save him. Find me a mage. Silence. Then the youngest counselor cleared her throat. There's a woman. In the Eastern Mountains. They say she's the last of the old unbinding practitioners. We could send for her. Do it. The mage arrived 3 days later, ancient, weathered, with eyes that seemed to see through skin to the soul beneath. She examined Yara thoroughly while the queen stood rigid, enduring the scrutiny. Stormcaller, the old woman finally said. Powerful one, too. I can feel the lightning screaming behind your bindings. Can you release it? Perhaps, but not without the seal that bound you. The mage's eyes sharpened. Who performed the binding? My father, Aldrich Valdrin. Something flickered across the mage's face. Recognition. Valdrin, she repeated slowly. From Thornwick. Yes, I know that family. Your grandmother was my apprentice, long ago, before she married into that bloodline and abandoned her gifts. Yara's world tilted. My grandmother? Marin Valdrin. Born Marin Stormright. The mage smiled grimly. She was one of the most powerful stormcallers I ever trained, but when she married your grandfather, he demanded she seal her abilities, said they were unnatural for a nobleman's wife. Understanding crashed through Yara like a wave. The gift doesn't come from my mother, she breathed. It comes from my father's line. Indeed, your mother was wholly human. Whatever your father told you about inheriting her shame was a lie. The mage's expression hardened. The Stormcaller blood runs through your father's veins, through you, and through any child you bear. Yara's hand flew to her stomach. My father knew. The words came out hollow. He knew all along. He blamed my mother to hide his own bloodline. If he performed your binding, he holds the seal. You'll need it to break free. 1 hour later, Yara was on horseback, riding south toward Thornwick with a contingent of royal guards at her back. She found her father in the great hall, a goblet of wine in his hand, living comfortably in the manor she'd been thrown out of like garbage. Her sister Mira stood near the fireplace, freezing when Yara entered. You! Aldrich's face twisted with contempt. How dare you show your face here? I need the binding seal, Yara said flatly. Give it to me. Absolutely not. You're a danger to everyone around you. That binding is the only thing keeping your monstrous abilities contained. My abilities come from you. Silence. Mira's eyes went wide. What? Grandmother was a stormcaller, Yara continued, her gaze never leaving her father's face. Your mother. The gift passed to you, then to me. Mother had nothing to do with it. That's a lie, Aldrich snarled, but his scent betrayed him, sharp with fear. Is it? Yara stepped forward. Is that why you banished Mother when my marks appeared? Because you needed someone to blame other than yourself? Because you couldn't stand the shame of your own bloodline? You don't know what you're talking about. Mother died in exile. Yara's voice cracked. Alone. Abandoned. Convinced that she'd somehow cursed her own daughter. And it was your fault. Your lie. Mira's hand flew to her mouth. Father, is this true? Of course not. She's twisting everything. There's more. Yara's eyes burned. The accident that killed Brennan Core. The one you blamed on my uncontrolled powers. The reason you had me bound in the first place. Your lightning struck him. My powers manifested 2 days after Brennan died. The words dropped like stones. I remember now. The binding confused my memories, but I remember. Brennan was already dead when my marks appeared. I couldn't have killed him because I didn't have access to my powers yet. All color drained from her father's face. You killed him, Yara said quietly. You have storm abilities too, don't you? Weaker than mine, but present. You killed Brennan, blamed it on me, and then bound my powers before anyone could discover the truth. That's insane. Father. Mira's voice was shaking. I saw you. That night. Coming back from the eastern fields where Brennan's body was found, you told me you'd been checking the livestock, but your hands, they were marked. Lightning burns. You've been lying my whole life. Yara held out her hand. The seal. Now. I won't. Mira moved with startling speed. She grabbed the poker from the fireplace and swung it directly at their father's head. Aldrich crumpled. Silence rang through the hall. The seal is in his study, Mira said, her voice trembling. 3rd drawer. Hidden compartment. Yara stared at her sister. This woman who'd believed their father's lies for years, who'd treated Yara like a monster. I'm sorry. Tears streamed down Mira's face. I believed him. I blamed you for everything. Mother's exile, Brennan's death, all of it. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Come with me, Yara said softly, to Ironholt. Be there when your niece or nephew is born. Help me build something better than what we came from. Mira's sob was answer enough. Yara found the seal exactly where Mira said it would be. A small crystal sphere containing a captured lightning bolt frozen mid-strike. Her power, trapped for 10 years. She closed her fist around it and felt the storm inside her surge toward freedom. Hold on, Calder, she whispered. I'm coming. Yara reached Ironholt at midnight, the crystal seal burning cold against her palm. She didn't stop at the gates, didn't wait for servants or announcements. She ran straight to the ice cellars, taking the stairs 3 at a time, her heart pounding with desperate hope. The old mage was waiting. "You found it." The woman's eyes locked on the crystal. "Good. We don't have much time." The light has reached his heart. Another day, perhaps 2, and there'll be nothing left to save. Yara looked at Calder, truly looked, and nearly collapsed. The golden glow had consumed him entirely. He lay motionless on a bed of ice that melted as quickly as servants could replace it, his body radiating heat like a dying star. His heartbeat was visible through his chest, each pulse a flare of blinding light. "Tell me what to do," Yara demanded. The mage took the crystal, examined it briefly, and then placed it in Yara's palm. "Crush it," she said simply, "and don't hold back." Yara closed her fist. The crystal shattered. Power exploded through her like a dam breaking. 10 years of suppressed lightning flooded her veins, screaming through every nerve, blazing along every silver mark on her skin. She felt the storm that had been trapped inside her. Vast, furious, magnificent, finally free. The marks on her body blazed white, her hair lifted on static electricity. And outside, thunder crashed despite the clear sky. "Now," the mage said, "call it down, all of it. Channel everything you have into him." Yara placed her hands on Calder's chest. The heat was unbearable. She felt her palms blister, smelled her own flesh burning, but she didn't pull away. "Feel me," she thought, pushing every ounce of her power into him. "Feel the storm. Let it cool the fire." Lightning answered. Not from her hands. From everywhere. It crackled through the ceiling, danced along the walls, filled the room with the scent of ozone and rain. She pulled it all toward her, became a conduit for the sky itself, and poured it into the blazing man beneath her palms. Fire met storm. The room exploded with light. Yara screamed as conflicting energies ripped through her body, but she didn't let go. She felt the curse fighting back, felt centuries of dark bargain resisting her interference, and she pushed harder. "You will not take him from me." Thunder shook the fortress. Lightning forked across Calder's body, sinking into his skin, meeting the golden fire head-on. And slowly, impossibly, the light began to dim. The heat beneath her palms cooled. The frantic pulse of fire faded to something steady, something normal. The golden glow retreated, pulling back from his neck, his chest, his heart, until nothing remained but pale skin and the steady rise and fall of breath. "Calder?" His eyes opened. Not bronze-lit, not fire-touched, just warm brown, the color of autumn leaves, his true color, hidden all these years beneath the curse's glow, looking up at her with wonder. "Yara." His voice was hoarse, cracked from disuse. "You did it." She collapsed against his chest, sobbing with relief. "The curse," he murmured, his hand coming up to stroke her hair. "I can feel it. It's gone. Not just suppressed, completely gone." The mage stepped forward, her expression awed. The storm didn't just cool the fire. It burned out the curse entirely. Root and branch. "The bargain is broken." "Our child," Yara gasped. "Will our child?" "Your child will be born free." The mage smiled. "No Solvane heir will ever carry this curse again. You've ended it, Your Majesty. Forever." Calder pulled Yara closer, pressing his lips to her forehead with the kind of tenderness that made her heart ache. "You saved me," he whispered. "You saved me first," she replied. "Now we're even." 6 months later, Yara stood on the battlements of Ironholt, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Everything had changed. Her father sat in a cell beneath Thornwick Manor, stripped of his lands and title, awaiting trial for the murder of Brennan Core and the exile of his innocent wife. Mira had testified against him without hesitation, her guilt transformed into fierce determination to make things right. Now Mira sat on Calder's council, the first woman to hold such a position in Northern history. She'd proven herself invaluable, sharp-minded, dedicated, and fiercely loyal to the sister she'd once wronged. The blood tithe had been officially abolished. Calder had ridden to every village personally, declaring that the northern beast was dead, that no more sacrifices would be demanded, that any woman offered could return home or find sanctuary in Ironholt. Dozens had chosen to stay. The unbinding mages had been pardoned and welcomed back. A school was being built in the eastern mountains to train young stormcallers, young fire wielders, and young carriers of any gift that had once been feared. Power would no longer be something to hide. And 2 weeks ago, Yara had given birth to their son. They'd named him Kieran, meaning ray of light, because he'd come into the world just as the sun crested the horizon, screaming his arrival with lungs that would someday command armies. There you are. Yara turned to find Calder approaching, Kieran cradled in his arms. Their son was awake, his dark eyes, so like his mother's, fixed on his father's face with intense concentration. Someone wanted his mama, Calder said, transferring the warm bundle into her arms. Yara kissed Kieran's downy head, breathing in the sweet scent of him. How's the council meeting? Productive. The southern kingdoms have agreed to new trade terms. They're rather more cooperative now that they know my wife can call lightning from a clear sky. He grinned. Apparently, that's excellent motivation for diplomacy. Yara laughed. Happy to help. Calder wrapped his arms around them both, his chin resting on her shoulder, his warmth, normal now, human, seeping through her gown. I was thinking, he murmured, about that night in the hollow, when I first saw you, chained and terrified and still ready to fight. What about it? They called you a sacrifice, something to be consumed and discarded. His arms tightened. They had no idea they were offering me everything I'd ever wanted. Yara leaned back into his embrace, watching their son yawn. We saved each other, she said softly. We did. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Storm and fire. Apparently they're not opposites at all. Just two halves of something extraordinary. She thought of everything that had brought them here. The chains, the hollow, the cold bargain that had become something so much more. They'd both entered this union expecting nothing, hiding everything. They'd found freedom in each other instead. And in doing so, they'd set an entire kingdom free. They offered her to the northern beast as a sacrifice. The chains bit into Yara's wrists as the village elders dragged her toward the hollow, that black pit in the mountainside, where generations of women had been left for the creature that ruled the northern reach. She was 23 years old, unmarried, and marked with silver scars that everyone whispered were proof of something unnatural. The beast will cleanse her corruption, the head elder declared. Her own father had volunteered her, had signed the papers with steady hands while her mother's portrait watched from the wall. Her mother, who died in exile, blamed for sins she never committed. So Yara didn't cry, didn't beg. She let them chain her to the ancient stone altar and walked into the darkness alone. Let it come, she thought. Let it end. But the beast never came. Instead, as dawn broke over the mountains, hoofbeats thundered through the silence. A rider appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a cloak black as midnight. When he dismounted and stepped into the light, Yara's breath caught. He was beautiful. Terrifyingly, impossibly beautiful, with eyes like molten bronze and an aura of power that pressed against her skin. I am Calder Solvane, he said, his voice rolling through the hollow like distant thunder. Alpha King of the Northern Reach. The beast, Yara started. There is no beast. Not anymore. He studied her chains, her marks, her defiant stare. Only me. Then why did you come? To claim what was offered. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the unnatural heat radiating from his skin. They gave you to the North. The North accepts. Yara met his gaze without flinching. And if I refuse? Something flickered in those bronze eyes. Surprise, respect, and something darker that made her pulse race. Then this, he said softly, will be far more interesting than I expected. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below. I read every single one, and they mean more than you know.